Hello. So, first and foremost, Star Citizen is pretty realistic. And I have to give my full props to the sound design team and the engineers that made everything possible for what you're about to see here. When I was leaving Port Olisar, or at least starting to leave Port Olisar, I saw an orange engine trail, and those are pretty distinct in terms of ship manufacturers and things like what color the engine trails are in space and in atmosphere and all that. So it caught my attention, and it's not something that wouldn't catch anybody that's a regular Star Citizen player's attention because it's a pretty rare ship to see flying around, especially near Port Olisar. And Port Olisar has a reputation of being a PvP, which is player versus player, as in one person that's a real person attacking another person, as opposed to an NPC, which is a non-player character. So, anyway, this is so, I guess you could say, immersive that I couldn't tell if that was a player or if it was an NPC. So, I legitimately didn't know if I was just going to be blasted on sight, especially if it was a player. So, what I did was I essentially watched from a distance, and whenever I thought their cockpit was close to me, I moved to an area where I thought it would be difficult for them to shoot me with their cannon. That ship has a cannon. You'll see it later in the video once it lands, but that's also another thing that told me at that time that it was a player, was the fact that the ship landed. I think they actually had a crime stat, which is sort of what it sounds like. They may have done something, or the game may have bugged on them a little bit, but what happens is the stations that we're at here, Port Olisar, is generally a friendly station, so when players or even enemies that are hostile to players or the local faction show up at the station, the turrets and defensive systems, and if there's any other naval ships, will actually start attacking that target. And that's what you're going to be seeing, or are already seeing. I kind of don't remember because I stitched together various clips from that. It wasn't something that I had the ability to continuously record from, especially since I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. I'm able to tell you what's going on now because I remember it as it was happening, and also it came back while I was seeing the videos again. So from that point, I can say that it appears as if the player was deciding that for whatever reason they wanted to get something from Port Olisar. Maybe they had something stored here at Port Olisar that they needed to get, and they could only take with them on their person. And I don't know if the specific ship that they have, which was either a Vanduul Scythe or a Vanduul Glaive, has its own internal, external storage system set up yet. So if they had an inventory for it, even if they landed at a certain way, sometimes the turrets are blind, and you can't actually get shot by them, so they may have found a safe spot to land while still being hostile on Port Olisar. I didn't exactly find out what happened to them afterward because I don't remember why. But suffice it to say, what happened here was something that in many other contexts would be considered a variation of Shellshock. I have such experiences with Star Citizen, and in the sense of we, early on, were given a sense of character preservation. It's something that is expanded upon in the mechanic known as Death of a Spaceman, to where in most video games and MMOs, your character isn't really something that you really, well, care about too much. Obviously, there's some exceptions to that, like, the major role players and all things like that. But when your character dies, it's not really something that's special or significant. There's a few games that are exceptions to this, and the creator of this game, the main director, Chris Roberts, he basically did a thing with one of his games where when you, as the player character, die in a mission, you are actually able to attend your character's own funeral. And that is a little in-game scene where your character... And if you entered a character name, they would actually have the character name in text or whatever format it was. I think if you were able to pre-select a character name, they would be able to verbally read it with the CD add-on and voice expansion. So it was specifically like a few names, not like a lot of them. Because it was the 90s. So in this game, we have a sense of like progression that we can lose. And it's not just in the sense of how there is, like, say, a gun that you got, and then you may want to keep that gun. That's something that still happens, but it's more so in the case of you found a really interesting piece of armor or a weapon that nobody else has seen before, and you really want to keep that weapon, or you want to sell that weapon. That's something that adds to a level of, this is specifically something that is unique to me. I technically, quote-unquote, it's not really ownership, because it's a digital item in a video game, whatever, you know. But I, as the player character, have something that nobody else has, and it's something that they can have, and it is something that is special to me because of the fact that I worked hard and or whatever, did something, completed a mission, did progress to get that weapon. Now, that also applies to our bodies as well. We don't have the finalized version of it yet, but we can actually decay over time. We do need to currently eat and drink at a minor level, not like at an inconvenient level. Like, it's probably every 4 hours real life time. So, like, it'd be an interesting reminder, because, like, in some games where you're really immersed, you won't necessarily, like, remember to eat and drink, and Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, they have this thing where there's a button that the chat can push where it's hydrate to remind them to drink, and it's kind of like Star Citizen itself is doing that to you. You're like, your body's getting a little bit you're getting a little bit thirsty there. You might want to drink some liquids, and we can store things in our backpacks, and we take them with us, and we can potentially lose those when we, as a player character, die. It's not something to where our inventory magically comes back with us, so it creates a sense of permanence. You will lose whatever you take with you, just as if you did it in real life, but in a little bit more of a limited and unlimited sense, because it's still gotta be fun. You know, it's not, they're gonna have some limitations, but it's not gonna be so punishing that you're gonna say, wow, I wouldn't want to do that. It's gonna be interesting. So, I guess that's about all I can really say on this for that, because it's not too much beyond being a surprise event that is just completely dynamic and unscripted, just like this video.